avanti, bella palla per Rebic, Rebic Ibra, Rebic, 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 il tiro, gol!
So we'll recap the games, preview the next ones, and then might actually just do the questions because we got some good ones.
Your girlfriend dyed her hair red? Ollie?
Wait.
Jordan's hair's red?
What's that based on the Instagram upload?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
It says you've liked it. You've liked the picture.
Just quickly going past and double tapping.
Yeah, honestly, that could be it. Oh, you commented on it too.
Yeah, I thought it was another one. No, it's not ginger. It's more like brown, but it does look ginger on that, to be fair.
Yeah, it does. No, it looks good on her, though.
Cheers. I'll pass it on. Right.
You don't have
Ready?
to, if that's weird.
Should we just keep that as the start of the podcast?
All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
What's up, guys? Glad to be back. Say the same thing every single week, but good to be here. As you guys can see, Madison is not with us. He won't be here, actually, the rest of the year. He's got finals, and then we are taking a Christmas break, but we have a special guest filling in. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Jan. You might know me as UK AC Milan. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
It's funny because not many people know the backstory behind SempreMilan and when it started, when we were absolutely irrelevant about 4 years ago.
5 this January.
Yeah, there you go. You see someone still keeping count, but Jan was actually one of the 3 co-founders. It was me, Jan, and Isaac Moller. In fact, it was us 2 who kind of dreamed it up one drunken night in Milan when we were watching the game.
Yeah.
And
I was nowhere in the
my
picture
full-time job. Yeah. We didn't know who AJ was, and then now it's, for some nereason, I'm getting paid to do it. So what a transformation that's been in near enough 5 years. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. First time on the podcast. And probably like the busiest one that we've had all season, to be honest. We've got 2 games to recap, 2 games to preview, but 2 dubs, which is, the most important thing. It's become a bit of a trademark this season. We seem to win 2 games a week now. But we'll start with the Celtic one. As always, like the Europa League games tend to fade a little bit to the back of the mind after we've had a game on Sunday in the league, which has been a bit more important. But this one was actually mega. So Celtic at home. Now, we kind of predicted a walkover in our predictions for this last week. Celtic are in absolute turmoil domestically. Like, the fans are protesting to get Lennon out. They're on a shocking run of form. Like, they've won 2 out of 11 games or something. And, of course, they showed up to San Siro and were 2-0 up inside 15 minutes or whatever it is. I thought they looked like world beaters. But
see, I didn't. Even though we were down 2-0 pretty early on, I just still had that weird confidence. It's like, we'll turn this around. Like, I didn't feel like they were doing anything that impressive. It was, and it's been a week, so I don't really remember the goals. But at the time, I remember thinking like, oh, we goofed. It was Krunic. He gave away twice. Yeah. And I was like, all right, well, that's 2 pretty poor individual errors there. But I don't know. I never felt worried, and it paid off. I'm glad because I was cocky.
It was a bad tactical choice by Pioli in the start to even play Krunic over Tonali, who was coming off 2 semi-decent games, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say his best.
To keep his rhythm going, it's a game that he should have 100% started. But, I mean, he got his subs right at half-time, but he definitely should have gone with Tonali, and hopefully Krunic doesn't get any more minutes.
Well, I don't mind him getting minutes. It's just he clearly can't play that holding midfield role that we probably thought he could. Like, we went into the season with Kessié, Benacer, Tonali, and we thought, all right, if we need a 4th choice, then Krunic will do. But it's clear that he won't do, and there's a reason we would have to Soumare. There's a reason we would still have to Bakayoko even when we got Tonali. And that's it. Krunic in that first game against Celtic to open the group played as a left winger / attacking midfielder, and he scored with a header. Like, he should be up that end of the pitch where he can't make mistakes like that.
We don't have the positions for him to be up there, in my opinion. That's what I mean when I say I hope he don't get any minutes. I just don't see where they'll come from. And he definitely shouldn't be in the centre of midfield.
Yeah,
What's
I agree with that.
remarkable now is... No, go on.
I was just going to basically reiterate what you guys are saying. His best performances were on the left wing, but that's not where he should be playing, and we have enough players in that position already, so just isn't a point to having him.
Yeah, the weird thing about it is that probably his best position is somewhere in a midfield three, as the one who can drive play forward, and he'd have been great for a 4-3-3 that we were sort of rocking with at times at the start of last season and before that, but then there ain't a place for him anymore. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets sold in January. But after this group game that we have tomorrow, we record on Wednesday nights, we've got Sparta Prague away tomorrow, which we'll come on to. We don't have any throwaway games anymore. There are no real opportunities to rotate and try out these depth players because our next game in Europe will be knockout. We can't afford to dick about anymore, but with experimenting with players in those positions. So we tried it, it didn't work. He's going to get another game there tomorrow. And who knows, he might turn into, prime Massimo Ambrosini or something, but I very highly doubt it. But the most important thing for me, is like Jan said, getting reps in Tonali's legs, to be honest, because the only way he's going to learn is game time. You can do as much as you want on the training pitch, and I think that's helped him get up to speed, and we've seen it in recent performances, but it's game time.
Do you guys think we lose tomorrow, seeing as we've already qualified and we're just kind of playing the B and C team?
So, hang on, before we start speculating, I did a Q&A before the first time that we played Sparta with a guy called Jan, funnily enough, same as your name, who gives us some good info, and I messaged him earlier and I was like, what do you think? Are you going to rotate the team again, or with you out of it already? And he said, yeah, there's going to be a lot of young players playing. I think that they're going to play a 17-year-old centre-back. Their star players, Adam Hlozek and Libor Kozak, are both injured. They've got captain out and the centre-back out because of suspension. So they're going to be playing... They got spanked by Slavia in their derby at the weekend, 3-0 at home.
Oof.
And they've lost 3 out of their last 4 in the league. So since the last time they played us, they've fallen off as well. So I don't know. I put a 1-1 as my prediction because you got to remember that we're going to be playing a ridiculously young team as well. So I don't know. I think it's probably going to be more important as that last free shot that we get to try out certain players.
Tata Rushanu is going to start, correct? Most likely. Yeah.
I'd start Antonio.
Antonio, yeah.
I'd start Donnarumma. I mean, after what happened against Roma, wasn't it? Again, shouldn't get any minutes.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him play.
It's one of them things. I don't really like saying that about players, but I just don't see why we wouldn't give Antonio a go when we're paying his contract $1 million a year. It just seems stupid.
This is the final year in his contract, right?
Yeah, he extended on the obviously when Gigio renewed the first time, we basically signed him on the same length of deal. The thing with Tata Rushanu is he might only have one mistake in his entire Milan career, and it might be that one against Roma that just happened to come in his first game. However, he was good for Fiorentina when he was there, but that was like best part of a decade ago now. He's been playing as a backup for like the last 3 seasons. So he just doesn't have the mental freshness, if you like. And I know you could say the same about Antonio Donnarumma, but the difference is when he's come in and we've called upon him, he's succeeded every time. He's kept 3 clean sheets. He's the only keeper in our history to play at least 300 minutes and not concede a goal. So you think, well, like Jan says, we're paying him $1 million a year. You get some fucking use out of him, don't you?
It sounds daft and all, but he's been with this squad for, the last 3 years now. So he's kind of got a feeling of how we play, and Tata Rushanu hasn't. Clearly didn't look very comfortable playing out the back. I'm not saying Donnarumma's amazing at it, the next Neuer, but he knows somewhat how we play. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it might all go out the window as well tomorrow when the back four completely changes. We'll have Dalot left back, Conti right back, Gabir and Duarte. So it's going to be like, there's going to be no familiarity between any of the players, really. It's going to be a wild one. But we'll come on to that.
Who's going to captain? Is anyone going to still be playing that is a normal starter?
I presume it'd be Conte.
I don't know.
Just as he's been there the longest.
I'll turn the TV off. I don't want to watch that.
Let me think. So we've got Castillejo, Diaz, Hauger, Colombo, Krunic, Tonali. It's going to have to be Tatarashanu if he starts, because he's the oldest. He has actually captained, he captained Romania's national team until he retired last month. But yeah, that's a bad one. Everyone else is under the age of 22 or whatever.
I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd give it to Castillejo. He's the only one who actually gets regular first-team minutes out of that.
3 goals in 4 as well. He's leading from the front. We should talk about him because we'd all written him off, and I still have. I'm not going to say that 3 meaningless goals.
I put in our group chat the second he came on. I said, "We're losing this game." Samu's on. His first touch was a goal.
You got rightly roasted for that on Twitter, to be fair.
Destroyed.
That was fantastic. Destroyed. But yeah, Samu, I don't know. He did a good interview today. He did a good press conference. And I know words are pretty shallow, but he's like, look, I know my place. I know I've got to fight for my position if I want to be at the club. I'm happy that I've scored goals recently, but I only cared about doing it consistently and the team getting wins. So I kind of like that he said that. The thing is, it's, whether he's happy being a backup, because that's all he's ever going to be while he's here, while we have such an important system player ahead of him, which we will come on to because we got a good question about that. But it's whether he fancies at the age of 27, is he? I can't remember how old he is. He might fancy, when he's entering his prime years, basically move back to Spain, where in a familiar league he could finally sort of get a new lease of life again. But we'll see. In the meantime, enjoying his recent form. He seems to score the same goal every time. It's where Rebic gets the ball on the left byline and cuts it back to the penalty spot, and he just thumps it in first time. So that's something we clearly worked on, and I like that. Rebic hasn't scored a goal yet this season, but he's got assists in 4 of the last 5 games. So he's showing that he can contribute no matter what, and that's another positive from us not having Ibra in the last 4 games, is that we've shown that we can win regardless. But anyway, Celtic game, then we'll move on to Sunday's game. Roared back, there was the Çalhanoğlu free kick. Beautiful. That's what we thought we were getting when we signed the free kick special.
The money for, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember how many he scored for us now. Someone said it was 4, but I can't remember.
I think it's 5.
Direct free kick. Yeah, that might have been the 5th.
It's not a horrendous return.
No,
they're not the easiest goals to score, so I'm okay with that.
I just think we expected a lot from that one that he scored at the halfway line. I think it was for Leverkusen. I think we thought we were getting that every time.
I think it was for Hamburg against Dortmund. It was about 50 yards, wasn't it? But the thing is, his strength is knuckleballing free kicks, and he never does it anymore. He always tries to get a very clean strike. I know knuckleballing free kicks is ridiculously hard. I'm not a professional footballer. I'm not saying it's easy, but if that's your thing, then probably try it more. But it was a nice free kick, the one that he scored. Got a question, Celtic's goalkeeper, Barkas, because he positioned his wall where he did and then stood on the side of the wall and said, beat me at my far post. And he basically just had to side foot it into the corner. So that was questionable. Equalised through Castillejo, goal that we just described, a cutback, bang to all. And then probably the Puskas Award winner for me for this year, Jens-Peter Hauger's little dart in from the left, beating 3-4 and the open foot into the far corner. I actually stood up and proper went for it for that goal, because that is what you love to see, man. How long it feels like ages since we've seen an amazing solo goal like that. Actually beating players.
Leao against Fiorentina last year.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
There's that one, and then Zlatan had one called back also against Fiorentina in the return.
Right, for the handball.
Yeah.
But that was an amazing goal, a really, really amazing goal. I liked it. That's what we are going to see from him. And funnily enough, since he scored that goal, he seems to have kind of skyrocketed a little bit in terms of his confidence. And he's now on 3 goals for us, which is remarkable when you consider some of the recent signings that came with much bigger expectations and much bigger price tags couldn't get close to that. And he's got 3 goals in, what is it now, 2 starts?
I think it's easier coming in with less expectations than it is with some of the big money moves that we've paid. But I just hope that we don't expect it from him every game because he still needs time to adapt.
Yeah.
He's going to come up against harder opposition, and I just hope we don't go too hard on him when he drops the ball every now and again.
Which he will. He will. He did have a bad performance at Lille away, which kind of fades in the memory when he has such a good one like he did against Celtic at home, but the one where he should have squared it to make it 2-0 and we would have been out of sight then, in my opinion. But yeah, when he follows it up with two good ones, in my opinion, as well, I can't complain. It's looking at the moment like a very good bit of business, and we'll see. But I agree. I think too much pressure on him, like it was with Liao at the start. Too much pressure is not going to be good. It's not going to be good. But now Liao's coming back, it means that we can put Hauger into... We're not forcing him into any lineups. We're able to pick situations where we think he's going to succeed. And that's good. The more depth we've got, the better, without a doubt. And then the fourth goal was a Hauger assist for Brahim Diaz when he dinked it over the keeper. That was a nice one, rounded off the scoring. And thanks to Lille's comeback against Sparta, it means we're through. Probably going to finish second because you've got to assume Lille will beat Celtic.
Yeah.
And
I were reading today, I don't think it'd even matter if we finish first because it's the top 4 teams at the Europa League, like the highest scoring points teams, and then the 8 that come down from the Champions League that go into top 1, and I don't think we hit that criteria anyway.
That's true, yeah. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that. You probably have to win 5 out of 6 games, wouldn't you, to be in that top 4
much.
teams?
When you look at the other groups and you see, I can't see us, even if we finish first, we'd probably be in the second seed, so it's probably good.
Yeah.
We've qualified.
Yeah. It's good, though, because obviously 2-0 down after 15 minutes against Celtic, we're thinking it's going to be like 2018-19, when we went to Olympiacos, needing to basically match whoever's result. Was it Betis?
Yeah, we just needed to not lose.
Yeah, because Olympiacos were the team that could jump us, and then it all fell apart in Athens. I think it's Athens.
Peak banter-era moment, I'd say.
It was up there. I think Pepe Reina started that game, and I think he made a bad mistake.
He sure did.
Yeah, and that became... You see, there's a bad backup for you. He did make some bad mistakes.
Yeah, he did.
It's interesting. I feel like we haven't had... outside of Donnarumma, we haven't had a good goalkeeper in, a decade.
I know who the guy was.
Had a decent backup goalkeeper.
Diego Lopez was the good backup, and then he became the starter.
Diego Lopez was the good starter, and then Donnarumma overtook him.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah. Praise Mija for that.
Great guy. So that was it. Notable performances. I mean, we've already said Hauger. He stood out from that game. The defence overall was shaky, but then obviously Kier went off. There's not really much you can say about it. A lot of people criticised Pioli for playing Kier to begin with, saying that we should have rested him, we should have played Gabriel and Romagnoli, but he came out after the game and said we were managing Romagnoli's return because we didn't want him to start consecutive games, which is fair enough, but then he came on and played 80 minutes anyway, so it makes me think maybe they weren't that worried, and it was just a sort of hollow justification. But hopefully Kier's injury is not too bad. He's having a scan on it at some point. It'll be tomorrow or Friday, so we'll see. But then Romagnoli came on and steadied the ship, and that was good. And then he followed that up with another good performance in the game that will come on to Sampdoria away. And then that was about it, really. Brahim came on and scored his 4th goal, but he's been a bit hit and miss as well. We might as well just carry on to the Sampdoria game then. I was worried about this one, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because Ranieri has this reputation, because of what he did over here with Leicester, of being quite a tactically astute manager who knows how to set his teams up against the teams that play really well. And in the end, it wasn't comfortable, but we managed to just about get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always struggle when we're in Genoa, whether it's against Genoa or Sampdoria. That's why I'm a bit nervous for the game. Is it next week? Wednesday, when we play them? I think that's not a straightforward one, and it never is really when we're over there. We always seem to be a bit ourselves hit and miss. So I think resting players midweek this week is probably an advantage for us. But again, in Genoa, anything can happen. That's my feeling of it.
I think last season we won 4-1, but that was when we just started on our tear. But seasons before that, we always seemed to win 1-0. I remember there was 2 seasons in a row where Carlos Bacca scored a late winner in both games, and we won 1-0. I think one of them was forward. I think one of them was Brocky's first game in charge when he took over as caretaker. But yeah, like you say, we never get an easy game against either team. And it wasn't easy because they had one approach plan, really, and that was to get the ball to Candreva, who I'd forgotten had gone there, and launch it into Quagliarella and hope that his veteran presence, but also his physical presence, would cause some problems for Gabbia, who's obviously inexperienced in Serie A.
No, he's never scored against us.
Exactly, and he kept that run going. I thought that got to start from the back for this one. I thought Gabbia and Romagnoli were outstanding.
Yeah, they looked really good together.
You can't fault them for the goal, in my opinion, because it was a set piece. And I want to talk about this because we've conceded 9 goals this season, 2 from open play, 7 from set piece situations. Now, there was an article earlier this week that said that part of the problem for that is that we use what's called a tight zone marking system, which is essentially just zonal marking, except a bit more congested around the edge of the 6-yard box, and you have 2 men near post. If you looked at what Sampdoria were doing, every single time they had a corner, they were aiming it near post to try and cause confusion. And there was that one time when I think Calabria clipped it onto Rebic and it went out luckily for another corner. Then Ekdal's header was at the near post, so we conceded another near post corner. Then you go back to the Roma game. There was the one where Zlatan flicked it on inadvertently at the near post. There was the one when Mancini tapped it in at the back post. There was the Tatarusanu one where he flapped it. And then Hellas, we had a couple of problems from free kicks. I'm not a football coach, don't profess to be, but perhaps it's time to change to man marking.
Yeah. We've had trouble with set pieces all decade, it seems like. I mean, I don't think there's been a season, at least in recent history, to where that hasn't been what we concede the most of is corners or free kicks. So it's frustrating because it sounds like we've figured out everything but how to defend a corner. And, you know, if man marking is a solution, then I'm all for it. We need to make the change. But this clearly isn't working because, like you said, we're conceding these near post every single time.
And teams will keep aiming for it. Like Pioli said after the game, we suffer a bit because when we don't have Ibra and Kier out there, we don't have the height. Now, I think that's fair enough, but it doesn't excuse the other 6 set-piece goals that we conceded when they were out there, or however many it is, it's the bulk of them. So perhaps something to look at, but if that's sort of our one flaw and we're still conceding less than a goal a game on average, then it's not too bad, but it's just something that we can cut out, and I found it interesting. We are actually going to have an analysis piece on that out hopefully in the next week or so. And then, we went 2-0 up though in the game before they pulled that goal back, and
did we go 2-0? I thought it Yeah, we went
2-0 up. The first one was, it caused a bit of a stir among pundits, among fans. I thought it was a Stonewall penalty. I didn't see the argument. Like the letter of the law is very clear now, whether you think it's harsh or not. If your arm's in an unnatural position and it hits it, it's a penalty kick. And his arm was up here, and he headed it onto his hand.
The only people that disagreed are the old school players when the rule was different for them. The old guys that refused to accept that rules change. I mean, that's it.
It's still not in my day. Yeah.
But in today's age, it was obviously a penalty. There's no denying it. That's the rule.
Yeah, you can't argue with today's rules really much. I mean, I suppose the one that you could argue with was a Calabria one, where Ronaldo kicked it at him and Calabria's back was turned. But other than that, it's hard to argue with it. They are the rules.
Especially when we've seen this exact penalty called time and time again. That Calabria one is an example of it, you know?
Do you remember the 4-2 comeback against Juve last season when Rebic at the near post headed it onto Bonucci's arm from like almost point blank range?
And it didn't
get called. People saying, oh, no, it did get called. And that was when Zlatan scored the penalty to make it 2-1 to them. And
why did I think?
Obviously came.
Did
came
it
back
happen
from
again? I could have sworn that didn't get called.
No, it did get.
He didn't call it, and then I think it went to VAR.
Yeah,
and then VAR
is that what it
called
was?
it after
Okay.
VAR.
Yeah.
And yeah, that to me, that there's proof that they've kind of made the rule more ambiguous, but at the same time they've cleared it up in the sense that they're just saying no matter if it's deliberate or what, you've got to assume that all handballs aren't deliberate now. In my opinion, you know, you're not going to try and catch a ball in your own box, are you? But if your arm is not in a natural position or you're trying to make your body bigger and it hits it in the box, it's a penalty. That's why looking back, now they've started calling more and more of them. I maybe can't even argue with that Calabria one that we had, you know, for the Coppa Italia game. It's like, if you're going to call them all, just call them all. If we have more penalties, so be it. You know, like, it's guaranteed goals per game, unless Zlatan takes it. But yeah, Kessié anyway took this one and scored, thankfully. No tweet from the official account this time saying he never misses or whatever.
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
Funny that. And it was a good pen. I mean, I never like it when players step up and place it there, you know, sort of down the middle. I always think you should pick a corner. You should always pick a corner. But then it worked. He waited. Kessié's got this penalty-taking technique, which is completely different to Zlatan. Zlatan, in many cases, completely premeditates where he's going to go. Kessié waits for the keeper to move. You know, he took his penalty when the keeper was sat down, basically. And that makes things a lot easier. It was just a game of chess, really. That went in, and then we scored. Samuel Castillejo scored within 34 seconds of coming on, I read. Which is
something like that, yeah.
Amazing. Like, that is an inspired sub. But again, give props to Rebic for doing the dirty work there. He isn't going to be the same type of centre-forward as Zlatan. He is a space eater. He does run in behind the lines and drag the centre-backs out. And he does things so smartly that I don't think people give him credit for just because his goals tally says 0 for the season. Some of the best forwards in the world are... I don't want to say, I was just going to use Firmino as an example, but he's probably not in the best of form at the moment. But you see, there are parallels with how creative centre forwards can work. I mean, Kane, for example, this season is racking up assists because he knows that his strengths are distributing and finding teammates who make those threatening runs.
It's a bit like Benzema and all with Real Madrid. Back when Ronaldo was there, he always used to get slated for not scoring enough, even though I think he did. But as a forward, sometimes you've got to be less selfish and help your team out. And if he's getting 4 assists in his last 5 games and we're still scoring, then it doesn't matter. For like Tata Rashanu who could score, and if it's a goal, it's a goal. I'm not bothered where it's coming from as long as it's coming.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree more. I would love to see Tata Rashanu score. We should bring him up for a corner tomorrow just to see. Yeah, and then there was the Ekdal goal. It was a little bit nervy, I suppose, in the last few minutes, but we saw it out. Donnarumma made one really good save, and I think that earned him a good score in the match reports. When it was 0-0, the Tonelli header that was going back across goal, and he strong-handed that. That was good. And then, other good performances. I said, Gabia and Kier were really good. Kessié, I think, got our man of the match.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah, he was.
In that game. He really was.
It's like, I can't remember the last time he dropped a performance below 7 out of 10. You know,
I think really it was before the Bakayoko season. I think it was just his initial season. I mean, he's been fantastic ever since.
Yeah, he's been especially good since we switched to a 4-2-3-1. I think we are lucky in the sense that it brings the best out of both Kessié and Benacer because their understanding is clearly phenomenal. You know, Benacer reminds me of a much better version of Johnny Hogg. Now, I should say at this point, Jan's a Town fan. For the first time on this podcast, we've got 2 Huddersfield fans on. But yeah, we've had this player for years now called Jonathan Hogan. What he basically does is runs all over that sort of between the defensive third and midfield third, right on the line. He just patrols that area, wins balls back, and he just gives them away straight away. Like, gives the ball to a teammate and says, "You're better, you do something with it." He's like that, but better because Benacer can actually do something with it. Like, he's good at driving play forward. And Kessié, everyone thinks of him as sort of the physical presence, the one who covers so much ground, wins all these duels and stuff. he ain't getting enough credit for some of the playmaking that he's doing. Like, if you watch him and some of the balls that he sprays wide, he's actually getting better at moving the ball too.
I think I might get slammed for this, but he's a bit like Gattuso and Seedorf combined in terms of he hasn't got Seedorf's ability like playmaking, but he can spray the balls all over the pitch. But then he's got the same ability as Gattuso, where he'll run, he'll cut up play, he'll just do all the dirty work as well. So it is kind of like having two in one. Obviously not on the same level as them two, but you kind of get what I mean.
I see he's got the strengths of both. And the thing is, like, the more and more I see of Tonali, and it will eventually click for him. There will be one game where it just clicks for Sandro Tonali. I'm convinced of it. Because he was used to doing both an easier and a harder job when he was at Brescia, because they played a midfield three and he sat at the base of it, what you call a regista now. But I don't know if they really exist so much anymore. But it was very easy for him because he never really had to go anywhere. He just had to get the ball back, but he had two teammates to help him do that in the midfield. And then he was allowed to show off his passing range, which he did. He's phenomenal at that. But he's going to take a bit of time to adapt to only having one player next to him and having to do a little bit more of everything. But when he gets there, you'll start to see the similarities. He says
he has improved lately. I think outside of this most recent match, which I think kind of he regressed a little bit, the two prior to that were his best with us.
Yeah, he has, but it's hard coming from being a big fish in a small pond, coming into a team that before he signed, I mean, how many were we unbeaten in 18 games, something like that?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know off the top of my head, something like that. And then he's got to come in and he's got to battle for a place with probably the two best midfielders in Serie A.
Yeah.
And that's going to be hard.
Yeah, it is. And I'm starting to see obviously he keeps getting lazily compared to Pirlo, or he did when he was at Brescia anyway, because obviously they both came through at Brescia, they both got the long hair, whatever. He said that he models himself more on Gattuso, and that's his actual idol. I'm starting to see the Gattuso side now because he's getting more and more stuck in with every game. But he's keeping it simple with the passes now. And the reason that that's important is because he puts together a string of passes, the confidence starts to grow, and then he starts to attempt more and more audacious passes. And then we might start to see the Pirlo side of things. But for the time being, we just need to be patient with him like we do all the young players. They're going to get time to grow, and they are going to grow. We haven't got many wrong in terms of the scouting recently. Duarte probably the only one. Sorry to dig him out like that, but so that was a good win. I can't really think of anybody else. Çalhanoğlu had a good game under the radar. I think a lot of people are looking at it looking at recent games through anti-Çalhanoğlu tinted spectacles because of the renewal thing that's ongoing. They're looking for him to do something amazing every game because otherwise he's not justifying the money he's asking for. But he's doing something really, really good. Kaká did an interview with Sky in the UK earlier today, and it was good because he talked about how the number 10 role's completely changed. And with teams now playing a much higher line and pressing, that pocket of space that used to exist for number 10s doesn't anymore. And then straight after doing that, I watched a video. It was like Tifo Football, but not them. I think it was Making Football Simple, a YouTube channel. Talked about how Çalhanoğlu, we are basically playing a 4-3-3 with the amount that he drops in and contributes to the build-up. So he's doing something quite specific. And I think to assume that because he's not contributing necessarily in terms of a goal and assist like he was prior to the start of the season and after lockdown, he's still having a meaningful contribution. And the renewal thing, to be honest, should be put to the back of people's heads because it ain't going to move forward until his agent arrives in Italy just before Christmas. So just let him get on with it until then, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone looks at goals and assists for your statistics, but he does so much more than that on the field. The space that he creates, his link-up play with other players is an underrated but overrated player at the same time. Do you know, he's like one of them players that we expect so much of, but when he might have a couple of games where he doesn't get a goal, he doesn't get an assist, suddenly the hacking out comes, and I don't think it's justified. I was hacking out at one point. I didn't think he was worthy of number 10, but he's slowly starting to show that he is. And just because he's not getting a goal and assist every game, I don't think that should come away from the fact that he has been one of our best players under Pioli and a leader when Zlatan hasn't been there. He has been silently leading the team. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because he's one of the more experienced players in this team. Like, you don't even realise it, but at the age of 26, soon it'll be 27. He's one of the older, in terms of experience anyway. He's one of the older bodies, and I think I agree. The underrated but overrated thing is pretty spot on, because he's underrated in terms of people perhaps don't recognise the contribution that he makes when he's not getting goals and assists, but perhaps overrated at the same time, because I think that there are a lot of people who jump to the other extreme and say, if we let Çalhanoğlu go, we won't get another player to do what he does. And I think you maybe could. Maybe. But it will take time for them to adapt. It's like people thinking Szoboszlai would arrive and instantly set the world on fire. Been doing all right in the Champions League, yes. But he plays in Austria. You know, he plays for a team that scores 5 goals every game. Right, so we've touched on it a little bit already, but Sparta Prague away tomorrow night. Not much in it in terms of the result. They obviously aren't going to qualify. We're going to qualify most likely second, but as mentioned, it probably doesn't matter if we finish second or first. Going to be a useful opportunity, though, for a few players. Before we do predictions quickly, I suppose might as well touch on the fact that this could be last chance saloon for the likes of Krunic, Conti, Duarte, players that have all been linked with an exit in January. It's like, if you can't show yourselves in a game like this against an opponent like this, with no disrespect intended, or not much anyway, then there isn't much of a future for you at the club.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is. I think most fans at least already think there isn't much of a future for any of those players at the club anyway. So unless they can do something crazy, I don't see it even winning them much time, if any at all.
Yeah, I don't think it'll win them much time. I think Conte, it's a hard one. I wouldn't trust Kalulu as our backup right back for the rest of the season, considering how many games we've still got left to play. So I think Conte's safe till at least the summer. But the likes of Krunic, yeah, I think they're fighting for their survival in January time.
Milan News did a decent... Well, it's Anto Vitiello, who obviously is probably the most high profile, I guess, of the journalists there, did a thing saying, watch out for the midfielder situation. Like, if there's an opportunity to bring in another what we call a holding midfielder in January, then we might do it. If it's another like loan with option type deal, then we might do it. So that seems to suggest that the writing's on the wall for Krunic. I agree with Conte. Another thing is, you know, if we fancy Dalot to be able to kind of do both, I personally think he's better left back. Like, he looks a better inverted fullback for some reason, whether it's his crossing or what. But he had his best game for us so far at left back in that first game against Sparta, actually. But it is nice to have him to be able to cover both. But Kalulu clearly isn't up to much, because otherwise he'd have been tried out in a game like this, I would think. And Duarte is just injury prone. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's going from a completely different kind of, for want of a better word, upbringing in Brazilian football, where perhaps everything isn't as, I don't want to generalise, but perhaps everything isn't as rigorous as European football. And you come over here to one of the biggest clubs in the world, who have a very, very rigorous training regime and play a very demanding style of football, and his body just hasn't held up for whatever reason. We kind of had that with Gustavo Gomez, so maybe there's parallels there. The players struggle to adapt from South America, but yeah. And then like the likes of Daniel Maldini could come off the bench potentially. Colombo's an interesting one as well. See how he gets on, because he's made appearances off the bench but hasn't scored since that game against Bodo Glimt in the third qualifying round. We haven't had a chance to ask, would you sign a new striker in January?
Yes. And
Loan?
no. Yes and no. I think if we're going to take Europa League seriously, then we do need a striker, and it might help with the transitioning of losing Ibra potentially in the summer, because I don't see him signing a contract extension, judging by that interview that he had with Van Brazini, where he was going to give up last season. and then decided to stay on. So I think we do need to start thinking about a backup striker, but then we've got to consider having enough minutes for everyone. So if we're not going to take Europa League seriously come the new year, then I wouldn't bother. But for me, Leao is more of a left winger than he is a striker, in my eyes anyway.
Leao and Rebic have both said multiple times in interviews that they prefer playing on the left. They prefer to be the ones driving into the space and causing havoc more from the side of the box, which I totally understand. They're both very good at that. We saw when Rebic came back into the fold that Teo Hernandez seemed to improve because of the relationship that them two have. It's stuff like that. It's sort of unquantifiables that people have forgotten about playing players in their natural positions. So, I kind of agree with that assessment. I think if an opportunity comes along to sign a suitable striker on loan for the rest of the season, and we really do want to potentially win the Europa League, then we should absolutely do it. I refuse to believe that Pioli and the rest of the management are genuinely happy with the idea of banking on Ibra being fit and playing a left winger up front, if not. Because Colombo, unfortunately, isn't ready. And it does him more harm if we all say he is ready, because he's 18 years of age. So there's no point crowbarring him into something that he isn't ready for just yet. But I'm a bit more optimistic about the Ibrahimovic renewal. And I know there's perhaps more to it than this, but if you think about it, I think that conversation will have been had. We'll have already spoken to Zlatan and to Raiola and said, what are you thinking? Do you think you might have another year in you? And I think if his answer would have been no, we'd be looking for a striker in January. We'd be trying to get someone in for the last 6 months that Zlatan's here to learn from him, and then he'll pass the baton. But we're not doing that, which implies that it's not a rush. I'd be surprised if he left at the end of the season and then we're like, well, shit, what do we do now? We have to just go and spend 50 million on another striker and hope for the best. I'd be surprised if we're not proactive in a sense. But it'll all come down to him and we'll see. But that is an elephant in the room that does need addressing at some point. Yeah, we're scoring goals without him now. But I think it might be naive to assume we're going to carry on scoring 2-3 goals a game without a recognised number 9 up front. There are options. Daniele Longo, whatever you think about his reliability, keeps saying that it's Daniel Malen. He's adamant that we're after him from PSV Eindhoven, who's had a bad knee injury. He was in red-hot form before that, but he's come back and he's still banging him in. So there's some good signs there. But we'll see. Colombo, it is tomorrow night. I think he scores tomorrow night.
I think he does, but then expectations are going to skyrocket, and we've seen what Milan fans are like when we play a bad team and someone that we want to have a good game has a good game, we exceed expectations of them. But then when they have a bad game and we want them to have a bad game, it's all to suit their agendas. I hope he does score for his confidence, but at the same time, I hope he doesn't, because it's just going to put so much expectations on him. He's going to be, we don't need this backup striker, blah, blah, blah. And again, we're playing against Slavia Prague with a 17-year-old centre-back. So
that's what I was thinking as well, is that, like, if there's a game for him to succeed, it's probably this. If he's playing against a young back line because their captain's out and they're playing a 17-year-old and they've got another centre-back out, so they're probably playing someone else in experience. If you're not sure you're up for it, like, ready for the big boys league now, then you're going to struggle against Syria defences. When he came on against Koulibaly and Manolas, I was like, you're probably going to get much of a sniff here. So if you can't do it in this, then might be time to potentially look at a loan, but I don't think we do that until next summer because we need the cover. That's if we don't sign a striker. Prediction anyway for Sparta. I've already said 1-1 in my prediction, so I'll stick with that. I just think it's going to be one of them where you can't really force the intensity. Both teams are going to be like, let's not get any injuries here. The group's resolved, nothing really to play for. So I've said 1-1. I'll stick with that.
Yeah, I'll go 2-2 just because I think our players are going to want to prove a little bit more. Like you said, a lot of players are kind of on the chopping block here, and this is their last chance saloon. So I think they're going to try and show a bit more. I don't necessarily think, even if they do show, that it's going to mean too much, just because it's not like the competition's that high. And if anything, this isn't the coach giving them an opportunity so much as it's giving the first team a rest. So I wouldn't look too much into it, but I think those players, they know the opportunity they have and they have to seize it. So I think we're going to try for a little bit more, but I don't trust Tatarusanu. I don't trust Duarte or Conti. So that's why I'm going 2-2.
Yeah, I think there'll be goals. I don't trust our back line, but then I look at the forwards, and if Samu is playing, if Hauge gets a start, Diaz gets a start, they can quite easily create something out of nothing. And do you know what? We could easily bag 3 or 4 goals if we're playing against a young, inexperienced side. So I'm going to go 3-1.
I like the confidence. And what was it? The Gianmario Sport said that they'll probably play a 3-5-2. I don't really think it means an awful lot, but in general, we've struggled a bit more to play against teams that play with 3 centre-backs and pack out the midfield, just in general. But it doesn't really mean anything tomorrow, given everything. Right, and then we've got Parma on Sunday. Big game, another chance to keep the gap at the top of the table 5 points, which I think we're going to need to, judging by the fixtures that are coming up for other teams this weekend. Parma are struggling this season. They had a pretty solid season last season, I think it'd be fair to say. And they gave us 2 good games, actually. But this season, it hadn't clicked for them. They've won 2 of their first 10 games. They've lost 3 and drawn 4. They had a really good game away at Inter when they should have won, but Inter fought back. I think they were 2-0. I think Inter were 2-0 down and ended up coming back to draw 2-2. But there's just not an awful lot about this Parma team that really inspires me, to be totally honest. The number 9, for example, is Roberto Inglese, who is still trying his best to forge out a career. He's on loan from Napoli. I'm trying to think. Gervinho's one who seems to cause us some problems because of his pace.
Yeah, I think his pace will cause us a threat, especially against Romagnoli, who hasn't looked the quickest this season. So if he can get in behind, then I think he will be a threat. I saw a stat today that against Parma, I think in our last 15 meetings, there's only 4 games where they haven't scored. So
good start.
I want to put it past them to scoring.
Yeah, and we seem to, even though we're not conceding goals in clusters so much, there is still a question mark about our defence. Like Sampdoria didn't really trouble us at all, and then bang, we've conceded a goal, and it's a nervy last 10 minutes. So we've always got that in us. If it's going to be anyone, it is probably going to be Gervinho. Thankfully, they don't have Kulusevski. Juraj Kuchka.
Will Zlatan be back?
Yes. Like Sky and Milan News are saying yes, they're hoping to have Leao, Benacer and Zlatan fully fit for that game. But then a couple of the newspapers have said that we're apprehensive about risking Zlatan in that game, and he might actually play against Genoa. I'll throw it out there to you both. If I get the word from the medical team, they don't think Zlatan's 100% fit, I aren't starting him in that game against Parma.
Yeah, I wouldn't, even if they do say he's 100% fit. I would keep him on the bench, save him for another game. Like you said, it's not. It's an opportunity to. I guess we probably won't extend our lead, but maintain that 5-point gap. Looking at the other games that the big teams play, they all have fairly easy going as well. So, worst case scenario, we drop 3 points and we're still in first. But I don't think we need to bring him on unless we are in a poor situation, and then bring him on later. But there's no point in risking him right now. If we could get by another week, we're obviously doing fine without him right now. Keep it going.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think if we are behind at any point in the match, which I think is very unlikely, then throw Ibra on. He'll have at least 45 minutes in his legs, I presume, but I don't think it's worth risking him to start the game when we haven't been struggling without him. But if we do end up struggling, throw him in, and he is a game changer. And we've seen what we like. We can play in a very low gear and then suddenly turn things on when we need to. We showed it against Celtic, against Juve last season. If we need to step it up and break a sweat, we will. So
that's one of the things that's encouraged me about this season is not only winning without Ibra, but winning without really going out first gear. Like you said, it's like if we need a goal, bang, we score one. How many times have we sort of dictated the game for the opening 20 minutes and then actually scored? Do you remember times gone by at San Siro where we'd play these, lesser sides at home? And if we hadn't scored after the first half hour, the crowd would start to get a little bit on edge, and misplaced passes would start getting, some negative reactions. And then it was like, but this time round, obviously the crowd out there, which removes some of the pressure, but it seems different. It's like we can just score whenever we want to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time since being able to say that. But on paper, the Parma game's the harder game because Genoa are just, I don't know. I think this is the year for them
to go down.
They're all about sacking their manager and bringing Thiago Motta back, who had a disastrous few games. He's the guy who did his UEFA
2-7-1 formation.
2-7-2. He actually did 2-7-2 and classed the goalkeeper as an outside player.
Because he viewed it
line as the centre backs.
It
was like he rotated. Yeah,
it was all strange.
That was fascinating. I read it and it kind of made sense, but then I'm like, you probably try that not at Serie A.
Let's not try and reinvent coaches the wheel here, that in Series C.
Give it a go on Football Manager first or something, or FIFA, and then see how it goes.
That's probably too complex for FIFA.
Yeah, so we'll see. Parma, what was I going to say? Parma this season, how many goals have they scored?
Parma I'm just doing this for my predictions. Doesn't have that bad of a rating, I believe, as far as their goal difference goes.
They are distinctly average, though. Won 2 out of 10 games, scored 10 goals, so won a game, conceded 17. So they've got a worse goal difference than the teams around them. I'm going to say that we win this 2-0 and we keep a big clean sheet.
Parma's in 16th. Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. They haven't followed up
doing much better. No, they're. Jeez. Yeah.
I don't really get Fabio Liverani. They should have stuck with
what was your prediction, Ollie?
2-0. Should have stuck with diversity.
Yeah. I'm going to go 3-0. I think this is a rout. This is easy.
I think they'll score. I really do. Whether it be from a set piece or Gervinho breaking in behind, probably give away a sloppy penalty, just trying to keep up with his pace or something like that. That's how I see us conceding. But again, every time we get out of the pitch, we look like we can score 3 or 4 goals. So I'm going to be brave and I'm going to say 4-1 with Ibra making a return in the second half.
I like it.
Yeah.
I bet we concede a penalty in Europa League. I bet Conte's going to do one of his classic handballs, Just throw that bad boy out there.
My prediction, and this is awful, I shouldn't say this, but my prediction is that Duarte goes off injured. And we have to haul someone off the bench to deputise at centre-back. Anyway, question time, everybody. Got a decent list of them here. Shall I start with Robson's? I'll start with Robson's because this deserves... Pat Dobson. This deserves some discussion. He opens this up very defensively. I don't mean to slate him, it's just a debate. But would Saelemaekers succeed elsewhere, or is he just a system player who suits the way that we play?
That's actually a really good question. I like that one a lot, and I don't know the answer, to be honest with you. I think it's interesting because he plays, we kind of touched on it last week, he makes the simple move, and that's why he works so well. He never overthinks anything. He takes the short pass if it's there. He runs when he has space. He just does the right things always. He doesn't take many risks, and so that might never elevate him to the next level. But he's also he's not getting held back because he's taking risks like Brahim Diaz, who tries to do one too many step overs and then gives the ball away. So he's doing the right thing, and I think you can get away with that in any system at any team. But would he be successful at like a top team, like I hate to say it, but a Liverpool or a Real Madrid or something where you have to be an out-and-out star to succeed? And he probably wouldn't. But I think he could get a job done just about anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like the question. I've had a little while to think about it. But I think every footballer is a system player, bar your Messis, your Ronaldos of the world. Like, they're the players that can just fit in any team, any system, and they're going to provide something for you. Whereas when you're a manager, you have a system and you choose players to fit that system. So, yeah, he is a system player, but aren't they all, in a sense? And I think if you put him in a Liverpool team, I don't think... Look, he's not going to score the goals that Salah scores you, Mane scores you, Firmino scores you, but in terms of pressing that Klopp asks, yeah, I mean, I think he could succeed to a certain extent in a team like that. But again, it's just... He's not going to succeed in a Guardiola system because he's not that type of player. But in any pressing sort of system and creating space, he's definitely, he would succeed.
Yeah, nail on the head. That's exactly what I would say. Every player is suited to a different system. You know, the thing that perhaps has been very well sort of documented since he arrived is that Saelemaekers is never going to be an end product winger, but what he is basically a player who actually covers the entire right side, and he gives us such an important balance to the way that we do things, because it allows inadvertently, it allows Rebic when he plays to play closer to Zlatan almost as a second striker. It allows Çalhanoğlu to drop a little bit deeper and find the pockets of space that pop up. But most importantly, because we've got that covered on the right side, it allows Teo to get forward and spend a lot of time bombing into the opposition box. Like, that happens if you study the backwards moves. That all happens because of what Saelemaekers gives us. So if you take that out, then we'll find out. But I think
this might be a hot take, but you take out the hype, take out the name value. He's basically just Eden Hazard on the right wing instead. I mean, they play the exact same style, and that's why Hazard was so successful. He just did it for the then European champions Chelsea, whereas Saelemaekers is coming up from no name to struggling club. Interesting
as well that Saelemaekers at Anderlecht played a number of different positions. He played right back, right wing, and attacking midfield and left wing.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I think he's helped make Calabria the better player that he is this season and post-lockdown, because he provides a lot more cover than Suso ever did or Castillo ever does. So, yeah, I think he's fitting the system perfectly. And he's just making the team play a lot better. It allows players like Leao, Rebic, Hakan to be more expressive because he can sit deep while they move forward. But he has also got a bit of skill in his pocket.
He does.
That was it against Inter where I think he turned Kolarov inside out and then set Leao off for one of our goals. I think it was our first goal. He has got a bit of everything, but yeah, he's definitely... I think he could succeed pretty much anywhere as long as the system fits.
Yeah, and I think he's got a good footballing brain. People wrongly accuse him of being like a headless chicken or whatever because he runs around so much. But you notice he started timing his attacking runs a lot better. A couple of times he's been right place, right time. He scored that goal just after half time against Roma when he knew to make that dart to the penalty spot, and then he got the feed and bang, it was a goal. And he just adds that little bit of time into his game. Then I think it's going to be hard if we sign a new right winger. You know, I think I'm very pro signing Florian Thauvin, as I've said so many times on this podcast, because from a business standpoint, the opportunity to go and get a proven player like that doesn't come around very often, and we should absolutely lunge for it. And competition for places is good. Saying is just don't be surprised if he doesn't do things in quite the same way. I think he can do a very good job, but he's far more flashy in what he does. So it'd be interesting if we do go out and get a new right winger, be it in January or in the summer, to see if they're told to do something similar, if they're told that they've got to work hard off the ball. Because some players might not like it.
Yeah, I'd love, a flashy player like that. But I think we've got enough on the left-hand side. And if we go to attacking, then we leave ourselves exposed. And I don't really want us to see us get a right wing. I don't think it's a priority right now because Samu was doing a pretty decent job at backup, clearly. And Alexis is pretty much unplayable at the minute, in my opinion. Anyway, I mean, we haven't lost every game that he's played in.
Yeah, we've won every game he's played, yeah.
Yeah,
it's not what's going on there. He clearly makes us better under the radar.
Yeah. Luciano Perani asked, what do we think about not just getting an Ibra deputy? I mean, we kind of touched on that, but the second part of his question is, do you find yourself chuckling when you look at the Serie A table?
Yes.
I do.
Single time.
Yeah.
I just look it up all the time and just like, wow.
Yeah, when I see it pop up on Sky Sports News when I'm just sat down having a cup of tea in the morning and I see it at the top, I have a little chuckle to myself, but it feels right. It feels like we're back to where we should be. And look, it's not, everyone's saying it's too early to call us Scudetto candidates yet, but I think we are. I mean,
we played over a quarter of the season.
We played over a quarter of the season, but if you take into account how well we've done in 2020 as a whole, we're the best team in Italy in 2020 and this season, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be calling ourselves that. I mean, that's what Milan's about, winning trophies.
Playing devil's advocate here, I think it's kind of small club mentality. And this isn't me slagging Luciano off, but it's kind of small club mentality when, you know, we're like, oh, look at us, we're top of the table. Because as you said, that's where we should be. It's where we have been. Not nearly enough this decade, but that's the level. That's the level of the club that we support. But I think we are going to... What will define whether we are genuine title challengers is how we deal with the rough patch. Every team in every season has a rough patch. And it's going to come. And I'm almost, again, playing devil's advocate, I'd rather it come sooner rather than later. So we can kind of ride out that wave and hopefully bang back into it. But then I'd rather not have one at all, I suppose.
Yeah, I think if it's going to come, I think it's going to come in our next 6 games. I'm just looking at the fixtures now. We've got Parma, Genoa, Sassuolo, Lazio. Benevento is always like it's just one of them games where we can just fall. A goalkeeper might score, and then we've got Juventus. So, you know, if we're going to have it, I think it's going to come. So I'd like to see us get as many points on the table before. Well, as many points, another 6 points by beating Parma and Genoa, and then we could afford a slip up against Sassuolo, maybe Lazio, and still be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Points on the board always. But as time goes on, people are going to be forced to start taking us seriously. I've noticed the media are flip now. Rather than discounting us, they're saying this is the Milan of the Scudetto and stuff. And I'm thinking it's reverse psychology now. You know, they want to see us fall, so they're calling us champions already. I'm going to combine 2 questions here, one from Rohit and one from Donald Janvier, Rohit says thoughts on Dusan Vlahovic as a deputy to Ibrahimovic, and Donald says, what about Belotti, who should leave if Torino don't get relegated this season, it'll be because of him. Either of those?
Belotti for me.
Oof.
I like...
Neither. I don't want any.
I don't want either. Oh yeah, but you still think we're going to get Haaland?
I don't think we're going to get Haaland. I'm wishing we get Haaland. But yeah, out of the 2 of those, I'd go Vlahovic.
Now, Torino, over the last 4 seasons, are wank. There's no 2 ways about it. They are a mess, nearly as bad as Genoa in terms of sacking and rehiring managers and just constantly underperforming despite what isn't actually a terrible squad. But Belotti has now hit double figures in Serie A goals for each of his last 5 seasons. He's on 7 goals in 9 this season. He scored 16 last season, 15 the season before that. Obviously, that 16-17 season, he scored 26. In terms of a proven Serie A goal scorer that isn't called Ciro Immobile, you're going to have to look. You have to look hard to find someone better than Belotti. Boyhood Milan fan as well now, and I know that doesn't necessarily make a huge difference in the world of football anymore, but he's going to push for something more ambitious. He's 26 now, so he's going to be entering those prime years. And what better place to take that step up? The thing is, if we could get him in on an advantageous deal and Ibra were to stick around for another year, that would be fantastic. Like, there you go. That is the passing of the baton.
I think a way to do it would be go for him in January, but try offer Colombo out on loan.
Yeah, or Krunic. Torino wanted Krunic really badly in the summer, so you throw him something, don't you? You throw him a bone, but we'll see.
I just feel like he's a safe choice, which isn't a bad thing. You know, like you said, he's proven, you know, you're going to get some goals out of him, but I don't know if he's going to keep us at the level that we're currently at. I don't know if that's the guy to take us to the next level. I don't know if that's the one to center the project around. You know, I just don't think he's got that it factor, and I don't know what it is, but he just doesn't do it for me.
We'll see. I think if he carries on these goal scoring rate, you know, 7 in 9, not even 9 starts, I don't think. I think he's come off the bench a couple of times. then you can't argue with it. He's scoring nearly a goal a game in a shit team. But Vlahovic is a different kind of a forward. He isn't a finisher, really. He's not a goal scorer. He's more of a creative forward, a hold-up player. I really like him. I was very impressed with him again when Fiorentina... I mean, I know they didn't score and they lost, but he did actually preoccupy our defence a bit more than he was giving credit for. He's only 21, so he's much younger, and he's only scored 1 goal this season. So I think to say he's the Ibra replacement now would be way out of line, to be honest. But he's one to keep an eye on because they're similar mould in theory. The similar mould. He just needs to add more goals and more end product to his game, which is so much easier said than done. But I think he's clever. I think he's...
How old is he?
21. 20.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Zlatan when he was leaving Ajax, he wasn't this insanely prolific guy, you know. He was doing great, obviously well hyped up, and rightfully so, but he wasn't bagging 30 goals a season then. So, I mean, they are kind of similar molds at similar points in their career.
Sorry, mate, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I'd let Zlatan pick. I'd say, like, who do you think could come in and do your job?
If anyone's going to be okay with making the cockiest decision in the world like that, it's Zlatan. Like,
I mean,
who do you see as your heir? Like, that's nuts.
No.
When we talk about Zlatan deputy, for some reason we seem to think that it needs to be a young striker like Vlahovic or Saelemaekers from Sassuolo. Yeah, I do, don't get me wrong, but when you're looking for an Ibra deputy, you're looking more than just someone for 20 years in the future, because, I mean, that's what you'd be getting with a deputy, considering Ibra's about to turn 40. You need someone that's going to come in, score goals, be a leader. Belotti's a captain of Torino. He's pretty quick. I mean, he'd be good for our pressing game, which we seem to be playing a lot. I think he just add a lot more to the team than expecting a young player to come in and fill the shoes of Ibra, whereas Belotti, no one will ever fill Ibra's shoes, but Belotti's more set to do that, if you know what I mean, in terms of age, leadership, goal-scoring abilities.
I think he'd thrive off it. I think he'd thrive off the idea of it as well, because he's a player who he's never shy. You know, he's never out of games. He's always a bastard for defenders to deal with, and I like that. And then I'll throw a name out there actually. Aubameyang doesn't seem to be right happy at Arsenal at the moment. Wouldn't touch him. No. That'd be a good homecoming, though. You know, he's only 28. I always thought he was about 32. Braxton,
32. I did.
Yeah, his wages are too high probably at the moment. Braxton says, would it be smart to let Çalhanoğlu leave for free to get to Szoboszlai in January?
No.
I'm getting...
That is a terrible idea. And this is the hottest he's ever been. You sell him right now, obviously, with 6 months on his contract. Well, I guess he might... Okay, it's not as terrible a question as I originally thought, but it's tough. I think you could still get some money for him, even if you reach a thing like, look, we're going to let you go, but we can't let you go for free. So
it's Eriksson all over again.
A short-term renewal at whatever median price while you court other clubs. That way we could get something out of it. Find some agreement like that, but you just can't let him go for free.
We weighed it up. Like I talked about it last week. I did a feature where looked at the economic impact of Çalhanoğlu signing at €5 million a year for 5 years.
Right.
It would cost us between 40 and 50 million euros, in terms of gross salary. To sign Szoboszlai for 25 mil and have him on half the wages would cost us around about 45 mil. It works out the same. So I see where the question is coming from. First of all, you need to try and avoid losing Çalhanoğlu for free. Second of all, there's a very bold assumption there that Szoboszlai is going to be an instant upgrade, which I'm not entirely sure is necessarily the case. And thirdly, it's that we actually are going to get Szoboszlai. It's all right saying, okay, let Hakan go, we'll get this guy. But then if we miss out, what do we do then? We've already burnt our bridge. Szoboszlai, in my opinion, he's going to Leipzig. They probably don't need him, but they've got the preferential lane. They'll keep him in the company and they'll use him as an accounting tool. Sorry, that's my answer.
No, I agree. I think if we had that Rangnick guy, whoever he is, we probably would have him nailed on as a signing. But yeah, he scores some good goals and he's creative play. He's all right, but I don't think he brings to the table what Hakan does. And we do need that experience in the side. It kind of reminds me of everyone's looking at all these goals that he scores, and yeah, he's performed well in the Champions League. But so did Luis Adriano. I mean, he scored 5 in the game for Shakhtar Donetsk, and everyone thought he was amazing. Turned out he wasn't so great. So I wouldn't look at breaking the bank on him because I don't think we need any more attacking players. I mean, obviously, if we lose Hakan, we lose Hakan, so we'll have to go all out for someone. But there's other areas of the team that need strengthening before we look at signings like that.
Couple of quick fire ones to end it because I'm conscious of time. Oolong Tea Leaves says, I like seeing players who didn't do well at Milan, like Piontek and Paqueta, play well for their new teams. Who's been your favourite ex-Milan player in recent years? I've always wanted Pato to do well wherever he goes. Like, I was kind of rooting for him to do well at Chelsea when he went there.
Yeah.
El Shaarawy, for some reason, I can't hate, even though he went to Roma. Apart from that, I'm kind of struggling. There's not many players that have left us recently that I've been gutted about. Bonaventura to an extent, but AJ hates him, so I ain't even going to go.
I don't hate him. I just don't think he was ever nearly as good as people like to think he is. I think Bonaventura was the prime example of the banter era. I mean, he was a big fish in a small pond, and he wasn't even a good big fish. He was just better than the average, but whatever. That's another subject. To answer the question, Andre Silva. Obviously, I was very big on him. Never wanted him to leave. Never wanted to fail, but he did. So now I just hope he, becomes something.
For me, it's got to be Cutrone.
Yeah, Cutrone's there for me as well.
I loved him when he was at the club, and I still look out for him now. And I just hope he does hit some kind of form where he proves everybody wrong. I really do.
Exact same thing, but my answer is actually Locatelli. I think we gave up on him too easily. I really do. He's another one where he came in and impressed so much at first that the expectation was set here, and he was never performing down here. He was just performing here. And we needed to give him that bit of time, and he's now probably Italy's best holding midfielder. So
I agree, but then we've got Benacer and Kessie, and if we'd have kept him, that wouldn't have happened, and we've probably got the best midfield pairing in the league at the minute. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other when it comes to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Final one. Rocky Award says, do you think Hauger's good enough to be in the starting 11, even when Leao and Rebic are both fit? And my missus asked, how important will Hauger be this season? Got a bit of an obsession with him at the moment because obviously Papa Hauger's a personal friend of the site and stuff, so,
Yeah, well, because of the answer you just gave right there, it's really impossible to give an unbiased answer here. So yes, he's good enough to start. But in all honesty, I do think he's going to hit that level pretty soon. Every time he steps on the pitch, he does something special. And for his age, for his background, he really doesn't make many wrong steps. So I think he's going to take over pretty soon here. I don't know when, but it'll happen. And I think he's going to be critical for us in the future. Maybe not this season, but definitely throughout the 2020s, he's going to become a star.
I think he will become a starter, but it just worries me that it's at the expense of someone like Leao and Rebic, who are also good. I mean, for years we've been craving for a left winger, and now we've got 3. It's not a bad dilemma to have, but it's in the same time it's not a nice one because all 3 are vital to us at the minute. And yeah, I hope he does become a starter, but I don't really want to see Leao or Rebic being dropped either. So it's one of them.
For him to become a starter, I think it means that Leao and or Rebic has to fail, or he has to adapt to a new position, be that a playmaker. I don't know. That could be interesting if he were to maybe take Brahim Diaz's spot if we can't afford him or whatever. But yeah, I think he'll get there without a doubt. I just hope it's not at the expense of one of the others. And that's it. I think everything covered just about. Before we end, I just want to say thank you to everyone who voted for us in the Football Content Awards. We got bronze, which out of however many were nominated, I'm not actually sure, but we're happy to get a podium finish, I guess. And next year we'll win it definitely because we're going to win the league and then get loads of views and then we'll win the whole thing. And if you haven't already, check out our shop. It's on our pinned tweet, but if not, then just go to Redbubble and search SempreMilan. You'll find
it's in the
shop.
description as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for that, doing your job. And you can get all kinds of stuff. It'll still come in time for Christmas. I think probably be all right a week until the festive period. You'll be fine. But in the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. I'm joined by Anthony Tolgard.
Yep, Tolgard45. Running out of time, sorry.
Jan at UK_AC Milan. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Yes, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We'll catch you in a week's time.
See you later, guys.
Andrea Conti, bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, gol!